and I'll take the lead here on this one, guys. We're gonna go into The Rock, Rocky Maivia, the son of Rocky Johnson, High Chief Peter Maivia, and I think that's where it is. That's his family line, I believe. Came into WWE as Rocky Maivia, just what we would call just a simple cookie-cutter babyface, you know. A guy that was trying to get off of his lineage, like, I'm a third-generation superstar, I'm just gonna make a name for myself. And although he was pretty decent, he was really good inside the ring, he was really showcasing his athletic ability, it was around this time, and it happened quickly, more faster than we thought it would happen. The fans started to resent him, because, again, it was a guy that was trying to be a babyface, and this was a time in the Attitude Era where the fans were just looking for something different. They didn't want a cookie-cutter babyface. They wanted something different. They didn't just want this guy to just be, yay, smiles, we're walking around, do whatever. And they turned on The Rock. They turned on The Rock not too long after he debuted. And immediately we saw that character diminish, and he became The Rock. And with The Rock, he just shedded that whole little third-generation superstar thing and just started being himself.
I remember his Intercontinental title run, and he led the Nation of Domination. Farouk was excommunicated from the group, and I remember they had a brief little feud. I remember a six-man tag. It was Rock, D'Lo Brown, and Mark Henry versus Farouk, Ken Shamrock, and the third man I cannot recall. Steve Blackman, I believe. Yes, Steve Blackman. And Farouk won that match after nailing the Dominator on The Rock, and Rock was just so great because he was like, I'm The Rock, I'll get in that ring when I want to get in that ring. He yelled it at the timekeeper. And, how funny, the Intercontinental Championship paving the way for yet another up-and-coming superstar being Rocky Maivia. So, he led the Nation of Domination. And how much longer after that before he became the corporate champion, Alex? Do you remember?
I think it happened within a year or so, maybe 2 or a year or so. It wasn't that long, really, because the Nation of Domination formed, I think, in 1997 or 1996, 1997. He became a corporate champion in 1998. I know that for sure. So it wasn't that long, man.
And, to me, in between that time, was Rock still a member of the Nation of Domination when he had that classic and I dare say underrated ladder match with Triple H over the Intercontinental title?
Yes.
That was an amazing match. And if we want to talk about, evolution, beyond character, that was a career evolution for The Rock, was that match. I mean, that really, I think, opened up a lot of people's eyes. Okay, The Rock is a big game player, and he plays to win. And that match, I think, will always be underrated in a lot of circles, whether it be in the YWC or abroad. And
this is around the time when The Rock was starting to test his character out. He was starting to test the waters with who he really was. He started using, if you smell what The Rock was cooking in his promos, it started to really build and add layers to who he was as a character, And I don't think it wasn't until he broke away from Nation of Domination, had that face turn against, it was a short face turn. He broke out. That was when he started, saying stuff like with the millions and the millions, the crowd was starting to respond to him. They were saying his catchphrases and stuff like that. And, that led to him eventually becoming the corporate champion. But even when he was the corporate champion, he was still getting over with the audience. People were still cheering for The Rock. Because he just started adding more and more and more layers to what he was, It was around this time he had that feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, I believe. We did that corporation championship run. No, I take that back. He didn't just feud with Austin. He feud with Mankind as well. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember that.
That feud with Mankind was one of the things that helped really establish Rock as, somebody to really look forward to inside that ring, because he was having some downright brutal brawls with Mankind, and it was just crazy that The Rock was just, being dominant, just going out there, kicking ass like he said he would, like Triple H said, when he kicks ass, he says he's gonna kick ass, he kicks ass. The Rock did the exact same thing. I'm gonna kick your ass, I'm gonna go out there and kick your ass. And one of those things that make the fans relate to him, somebody that practices what he preaches.
Absolutely. I think Rock was such a great heel during this period. I remember their I Quit match. Mankind was handcuffed, and Rock was just parading him over the head with a steel chair, and it was just classic. Just kept beating him until Mankind finally said, I quit. And I don't know if this was before or after, but they even had an empty arena brawl, for God's sakes. I believe that was before that I Quit encounter. Am I right, Alex?
Yes, that was.
That was insane. I think Rock and Mankind, both as a tag team and, as opponents, were doing things far ahead of their time. And that's what, great wrestlers do. They don't imitate, they innovate. And Rock, I think, was the pinnacle of that in that time period. And then when he broke away and became the People's Champion, the shit hit the fan, but it was a glorious sight. He really came into his own. He perfected himself. And the crowd just really got behind him, because when he was the Brahma Bull, when he was the People's Champion, anything that man touched turned to gold.
Yeah, when he broke away from that corporation, and this was right after his feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which was a great feud, by the way. The Rock just took off. He got on a fucking rocket and just launched himself to the fucking moon as one of the biggest baby faces that ever entered WWE. Everything he said, everything he did, the crowd was quoting him left and right, even in schools. He was so popular that people were quoting him in schools in real life. You know, if you smell what The Rock was cooking to stick that thing up your candy ass, and him singing his song of Smackdown Hotel and everything like that. The Rock, like you said, everything The Rock did turned to gold. This man was everything sports entertainment was meant to be. He was the epitome of sports entertainment. And, you know, he led WWE in 2000, even in 2001, when Austin came back. He had that feud with Austin, and, you know, his success in the wrestling business eventually led into him starting a movie career in 2001, which would then, you know, actually lead into his eventual heel turn in 2003. But, John, your thoughts on him when he was at his highest during that face run after the corporation?
It was right place, right time, right person. You know, anybody can say what they want about The Rock. I have my own personal reservations about the guy, but that's not what this video is about. The fact is, he was selling the merch, he was cutting the lines perfectly, and he was, you know, towing the line. He was towing it better than anybody in the back. You know, him and Austin were the guys really pulling that era and making it as golden as it was. And to me, some memorable segments. I remember he had to face Shane McMahon and Booker T in a handicap match for the WCW Championship, and Lillian's trying to do a serious interview. He's like, "What's with the Barbara Walters impersonation all of a sudden, Lillian? Let's be honest, Lillian. We know you get wet with perspiration standing this close to The Rock." And it was just lines like that. It's just like, damn, just rolled off the tongue so smooth. And that's, you know, why I think made The Rock so great. You know, we go to Mick Foley, who was the everyman, to the polar opposite in The Rock, to being the man that everybody wishes they could be. You know, they wanted to be as quick-witted as The Rock. They wanted to be as electrifying as The Rock. So if they couldn't be him, they were going to join him. They were going to gravitate towards him. And I feel like guys like The Rock, characters like The Rock, really just take that imagination, take that electricity, and they elevate it by their sheer presence alone. You know, he's had those classic feuds with Austin. I felt like he had a great feud with Jericho, tag team champions at one point with The Rock and Jericho, which I always find an interesting little factoid, considering how much WWE billed those two to have hated each other. And, you know, it's just, Rock's had the classic matches, and he'll always be the Brahma Bull. And then to go into 2002, 2003, where he was the Hollywood A-lister, too big for the business, which, you know, again, I feel like that was kind of grounded in realism at the same time, because if you were a fan like me, and this is speaking solely from one point of view where there are countless of them, you know, you did take it as a personal affront as a wrestling fan. You say, oh, you're going to be back. It took you all these years to come back. You think I owe you something? Screw you. And you say you're so excited to come back, and yet you stick to your movies. But Rock made that work. He took my personal hurt because I loved him so much, and he turned it into hate. And that's what made him so awesome. His heel run, you know, beating Hulk Hogan at No Way Out and shaking Vince McMahon's hand. Oh, my God. Didn't that just want to make you vomit? The Rock shaking hands with Vince McMahon. And it was great. And at the same time, guess who got one of the biggest rubs of this heel turn? The Hurricane. Pin The Rock. Oh.
And John, here's the thing about The Rock's character that just amazes me. You know, once again, he came in as this cookie-cutter babyface, and then when he turned heel, he was being himself. He was being himself. He amplified his character up by 100%. And he was an egotist. He was this egotist. The Rock did this. The Rock did that. The Rock, The Rock, The Rock. You know, referring to himself in the first person, it was actually kind of funny, too. But he was the ultimate egotist. And the thing about that is you would think of that as a heel, but the way he presented himself, it wasn't him being a heel. It was him being real. It was him being something unique, something realistic. It stopped being a bad guy and just started being, hey, this guy's for real. And it's stuff like that, where The Rock had reached that level where he was beyond being a character. He was just being who he is. He was being a realistic entity. And something like that blurred the lines of being a babyface and a heel. He could be that person you can love and hate. You know, he came back in that run you described where he was the Hollywood heel. You know, hey, I'm famous now. I went to Hollywood, you know, I'm all over the place now. Hey, I'm famous. What are you gonna do about it? You can hate me all you want. Doesn't matter to me. I'm still gonna go make some money in Hollywood, make the movies. You're still gonna love it. It's just one of those things where The Rock was just, he was still being himself. He was just, you know, expressing it in a different filter. And, you know, it just made for a great heel, and it also made for a great babyface. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I loved how confident he was in his own ability to get the crowd to love him and eat his lines up. Because I remember one promo he delivered on Hogan at a SmackDown taping, and at one point he looks to one of the camera guys and he's like, hey, get The Rock some of that People's Water. He actually said People's Water. And then those were two of the great things about The Rock. He could turn anything into People's this and People's that, and his constant, reference to himself in third person. Well, let The Rock tell you this. Like, who's The Rock? Is this some imaginary friend? Like, you conjured up, oh, wait, you're talking about you. Wow, you're a grade A douchebag. And, you know, it worked. It worked. Because, again, Rock was that guy, and I think that's why a heel turn made sense at that time. Because even as a face, he was that guy that you wanted to gravitate towards. You knew you would never be him, so you wanted to join him. Now that he made joining you seem unappealing, there was nothing left but resentment. Because deep down in the core, you wanted to be that guy. You wanted to be the Scorpion King. You wanted to be the guy getting more poontang pie in one night than you knew that your ass could get in a lifetime. And that's solely speaking for myself, okay? I'm not that much of an egotist. But it's just, you know, because you knew he wasn't fighting for you anymore, he wasn't your champion, you were just left resentful and bitter, thinking, yeah, fuck you, Rock.
You want to just go ahead and end it right there for The Rock? I think we've really said everything we can about The Rock, unless you want to say something else.
No, because, you know, he returns to help Mick Foley at WrestleMania 20, same Rock, same promo cutter, you know, nothing really different. He's the defender of the people, and he was the defender of his friend, and now we've got the bout that he's going to have with the next person on our list, coincidentally enough, John Cena, and really nothing's changed about The Rock since. So, moving on to John Cena, let's talk about that infamous night, the Kurt Angle Invitational. John Cena comes out, and Kurt's just looking at him all smug and saying, well, who the hell are you? I'm John Cena. Okay, John Cena, what sets you apart from everybody else? Why do you think you deserve to be here? Ruthless aggression, and bam, the slap seen around the world. What did you think that night, Alyx?
That, to me, was probably one of the things that really identified the ruthless aggression era. We had Vince McMahon come out around that time and say, I'm looking for somebody with ruthless aggression. Next thing we know, we see a guy who's, you know, in wrestling ties, like, who the hell are you? Standing up to Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, another one of the strong antagonists of its time, you know, putting an invitational out there. He's all like, who the fuck are you? And when he said that, ruthless aggression, and slapped the taste out of his mouth, it was a good way to really make a name for yourself on your debut. I'll say it that way.
Absolutely, and what that debut turned into, I mean, he did get a few wins over Chris Jericho under the rookie student kind of gimmick where he was gaining respect from guys like Undertaker and the like, and then they pulled the rug out from underneath him, and then when you reintroduce John Cena, well, during his time off, he got his PhD in thugonomics. Or should I say his doctorate, because he'd be known as the doctor of thugonomics, and he started cutting some of the most ridiculous rhymes, and as the musician of the Horseman, Alyx, I know you can appreciate that.
Definitely. And the thing about that one was, during the time, you know, rap music was really hot, and so to see a white rapper, of course you had Eminem, but with the rappers mostly being black, to get another white rapper was pretty smart of WWE to really capitalize on. And he blew up. He was all over the place, you know. He did the whole "you can't see me" thing. Next thing you know, we see it on the football field, the basketball court. People are doing it in their music videos. The "you can't see me" thing really helped John Cena get over. You know, taking his hand, waving it in front of his face. It was one of those things that was like, it was crazy. He was doing these rhymes, doing rhymes on Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Tori Wilson, all these superstars, and he was doing it so good. And when he first did it, of course, you know, he was a heel. People was all like, boo, you suck, John Cena. And then he was doing it so well, and it was becoming so entertaining with it. Even as a heel, fans started to get behind him. Fans started to connect with what John Cena was all about. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, and honestly, it just makes my mind go back to a video that LV545 War did. John Cena was actually his first installment when he was doing his own 100 Wrestlers, 100 Videos challenge, And he pretty much just echoed your sentiments. You know, John Cena was what was cool at the time when he won the U.S. Championship from Big Show at WrestleMania 20, and then he blinged it out. Everybody was like freaking out because they were thinking, man, we haven't seen anything like this. What is this? So John Cena, his character evolution, what was so great about his particular character evolution, Alex, in my mind, was it forced the things around him to evolve. And you know, you get the blinged out championships, and you do the feuds, and he had that feud with Carlito and his bodyguard Jesus stabbed in a nightclub, which today, you know, that storyline is practically laughable, but hell, the Cena character made it work because he was the thug, and I guess you could buy that kind of thing happening with his particular lifestyle. And then he becomes, again, a lot like The Rock. It's funny how many parallels I see between the two now that we do this character evolution. Cena, in his own right, became a champion of the people. He was the modern man. He was the guy that was brought up from the suburbs, didn't grow up in limousines and mansions, and he, you know, it was through grit and determination that he rise to the top. And, you know, the Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick would soon become a very over gimmick. People would gravitate towards it, and it would all culminate in a WWE title win at WrestleMania 21 against a very dominant champion at the time, JBL.
Yeah, man, and this was actually the feud where I believe one of the feuds that really established who John Cena was as a character. The one before that was his feud with Carlito, Caribbean Cool at the time, where he got injured. He lost the U.S. Championship to Carlito, and then came back just determined to make a statement. It was like, once he came back, we started seeing that different side of John Cena, that when you would hit him, he'll get right back up and will just fight you until he had nothing left in him. You know, he showed that aggressive side of him. Once again, the ruthless aggression never left him. It just got much, much, much more aggressive. If that's the best word to describe it. But, you know, that aggressive nature of John Cena just kept on building up and up and up. And, you know, it started growing more and more as the years go by, even into that feud with JBL, where we saw his morals being tested for the first time. We had JBL calling him a street thug, saying that you are everything that I'm fighting against and everything like that. And John Cena said, you're everything I wanted to fight against. You're that little establishment that tried to keep me down, calling me a thug. I'm like everybody else. I'm the average person. You're not, you know. And that's what I love about that feud. That was the feud that really helped establish John Cena as a man of the people. That was the feud that really helped, you know, make Cena the guy that the fans could get behind. Although his face run did that for him, obviously, it was that feud with JBL that really established this guy is a man of the people.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be candid, Alex. Dusty Rhodes was a common man, and I love Dusty Rhodes. John Cena made being a common man badass. You took pride in it. This was when the Chain Gang had legitimate soldiers with pipes and bombs ready to go and guns ablazing. And JBL was the very antithesis of what John Cena was. He came from money. He came from limousines. He came from servants and mansions. And that's what everything Cena was fighting against. That was his rebellion. And it grew from just being a one-man rebellion to a rebellion of a sea of people and a mass of people just all ready to charge at that one singular point. That was JBL. That was the WWE title. And to be quite honest, for the first half of his championship reign, very early in it, it was, you know, ridiculous getting the insane pops. Of course, he blamed that title on a very memorable segment where JBL was going to try and stop John Cena. And then he just ended up putting his hands in, I believe, cow intestine or something disgusting like that. And then Cena blinged out the WWE Championship. And if you thought the U.S. title reaction was crazy, I mean, this reaction was ape shit. Because they're thinking, that's the world title. He seriously did it to that? I mean, a championship that goes back so many years, decades upon decades. And it's just, for him to do that, some saw it as blatantly disrespectful. Other people saw it as a sign of, no pun intended, evolution. And it's so funny, Alex, because speaking personally from a subjective point of view, when he first debuted the blinged out title, I fell in love with it. I thought it had a sleek look. I thought it looked badass. Now I'm sick at the sight of it. But at the time, I'm just thinking, man, that is beautiful.
Seriously, man. At the time, it was something different. It was something new. It was something that, you know, again, hip-hop was the thing back then. You had a spinner belt that when you take it, you spin it. Blinged out rims and stuff like that, man. Excuse me, that was an awesome belt to have at the time. It was perfect for the culture that it was held for.
That's the greatest thing about this character. As LV said in his commentary, and as we're saying now, it represented a generation. It defined it, and it represented it with the utmost pride. And, of course, he'd go to Raw, he'd face Jericho and Christian, then he'd have a feud with Angle, and the feud with Angle was when it all began.
Yeah, this is where the internet fans, the evolution of the John Cena hate began, definitely.
Festering and boiling like a disgusting, blemish on someone's face. It was just the hatred for John Cena was becoming more and more palpable as time progressed. And yet Cena carried it with his head up. He was still himself for a time until we saw somewhat of a character evolution. It was no longer the rhyming doctor of thugonomics, but he assumed full-time the position of chain gang leader. And that was no longer rhyming lines, but knuckling up night in and night out. And, defending that WWE title. And in that time, again, you had Chris Jericho and Christian. Chris Jericho, once Christian got out of the picture, which in my opinion, Alyx, that triple threat match they had at Vengeance of, I believe, 05. It was 05. So yeah, Alyx, the match that John Cena had with Chris Jericho and Christian at Vengeance of 05 was a fantastic match. And I think it was a very underrated triple threat match, and it was great seeing Christian get in the picture. But, around that time, he was kind of just dropping the lyrics and, really became, again, the chain gang soldier. And I personally liked it. I didn't even start hating Cena then, because, again, broke off with Jericho after Christian got out of the picture, then Kurt Angle, then Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, then Shawn Michaels a little bit, then Umaga. It was insanity, all the people he feuded with.
I think the best thing about the crowd reaction, and even I say this right now, especially when he had that match with Triple H at WrestleMania 22, and the crowd completely turned on John Cena, the infamous role switch where Triple H became the babyface and John Cena became the heel. I think the reaction that he was getting at the time made him better. It contributed to his actual evolution, because John Cena then became the guy that, again, instead of trying to play on the crowd, he couldn't do it anymore, so he stopped being the chain gang, all that kind of stuff, and started being more of who he was. He started, getting rid of the rhymes. He didn't do it as much, but he became this smart-ass, I'm never going to give up, I'm never going to surrender, this type of guy that just, at the time was a Marine gimmick, but it soon grew into hustle, loyalty, and respect. The type of guy that I will fight you until I can't fight no more. And if you beat me, you beat me, and I will respect you for it. It was the guy that became the ultimate role model, the person that the kids will grow up to be like. And even till this day, WWE is really emphasizing that and actually making something out of it.
Absolutely, rise above the hate. Cena, he went from underdog to dynasty, and I think that's the grandest evolution he underwent. As a person, as a fixture in the company, he went from a cog in the machine to the engine. And, with that came shedding the layers of his character. Like you said, Doctor of Thugonomics, to just the chain gang soldier, to, just hustle, loyalty, respect. And I liked how he refined patriotism as well. He wasn't like Hacksaw Jim Duggan waving the American flag. No, he showed pride in a different way. Like you said, the Marine gimmick, knuckling up, going in, night out, and fighting for what he believed in, just like a soldier would. So it was kind of like an evolved form of a patriotic gimmick of sorts at the core, but it didn't have to have red, white, and blue to show that it was patriotic. And we even see remnants of that gimmick today, with John Cena simply saying, hey, rise above the hate. And, we did a huge commentary on John Cena, and I feel like that's as much as we could touch on with John Cena. Let's move on.
But before we go on, though, I also want to talk about what could possibly end up happening for his evolution character next. Because with all the talks of him turning heel, I do think we should touch on that. Definitely.
Okay, you have the floor first, and I'll chime in when I see fit to put in my 2 cents.
Because, I think this heel turn is one of those evolutions that need to happen, and John Cena is really going to be that type of superstar that just defines what wrestling is. Because eventually, we have this guy that's just going out there being who he is. If you respect me, that's how it is. If you hate me, this is how it is. It's one of those things that's the type of character he is right now and was for a couple of years. What I think needs to happen, because eventually, human nature, once you're hit with something long enough and it frustrates you to a point that you just explode, we call it getting real. Because once again, if you was in this situation, you do the exact same thing. But in terms of wrestling, it would be turning heel. It's one of those things where it's like, look, I've had enough of this. You've been booing me all this time. I've come out here, put on the best matches for your entertainment, did everything for you, and you continue to disrespect me. You continue to turn on me. And just like Mick Foley, who stopped being giving and loyal to the fans and started being more selfish. I think John Cena needs to mirror that. I think he needs to get to a point where it's like, I'm tired of it. If you're not going to respect what I do, then screw you. He needs to take more pride in what he wants, into his morals. That, to me, should be the next step.
You know, he can take more pride, and we can definitely go that direction. The question there lies with WWE, because you are taking a gamble. We need to realize that Cena's core audience is, you know, the children, the women, and yes, you know, some men. I'm not excluding the entire older, testosterone-pumping male demographic. I mean, I'm sure there are some that do support Cena, you know, military personnel and the like. The thing is, Alyx, when you have that kind of face that has had his feet firmly planted in the ground of his morals and his virtues, you are taking a gamble. Now, in that big Cena commentary, we all agreed that he does need to get real. So how far away from face does he have to stray to get to that point? Only time will tell. If the Kane promo was any indication, I admire WWE for taking the chance like WCW did with Hogan, because, you know, sometimes maybe it isn't even that much of a gamble when you look at it. You know, people are getting tired, people are getting bored, so maybe if anything it's an investment more than a gamble, but can they risk losing that audience? Only time will tell, Alyx.
Okay,